Good morning. Today on Spotlight, inside Michigan's Democracy Defense Project and reaction to the outcome of the 2024 election from both sides of the political aisle. My guest, former Governor Jim Blanchard, a Democrat, former Governor John Engler, a Republican, former Lieutenant Governor John Cherry, a Democrat, and former U.S. Congressman Mike Bishop, a Republican. All four are board members of the Democracy Defense Project here in Michigan. It's Sunday, November the 10th. I'm Chuck Stokes, and this is Spotlight. Gentlemen, thanks for joining me today on Spotlight. Hope you're all doing well. We just witnessed this historic election. The four of you teamed up together not terribly long ago, made a lot of news about this Democracy Defense Project here in Michigan and other places across the nation. As you witness what happened this past Tuesday, do you feel as though what you teamed up to do together indeed worked? Let's start with you, Governor Blanchard.
Well, the answer is yes, absolutely. I think given the fact that Donald Trump won the presidency, it's a good thing that he got the popular vote as well. So I don't think we're going to be dealing with election denialism or it was rigged or a lot of other things that we had to deal with several years ago. But we were formed. We're a bipartisan group, by the way, just nursing a cold. We're a bipartisan group of people who served in politics and government. And our purpose was to convey to the public whenever we could that our elections in Michigan are free, fair, accurate, and secure, and that we can trust the 83 county clerks and the over 1,500 city and township clerks who manage our elections.
Governor Engler, I'm going to give you a chance to weigh in on that. You made some news not terribly long ago because you did a tour there in West Michigan with the clerk, Lisa Posthumous Lyons. And as people saw that, I think that probably gave them some reassurance that eyeballs were really on the process.
Right, Chuck, that's right. The process has changed a lot. I always felt that this election in 2024 was going to be different than 2020 because we were out of the COVID era, and that was so disruptive and so unsettling for people and so much uncertainty, so many changes in the process. Those changes in the process now have been around for at least a couple of elections. And so what I saw at the visit to Kent County, and the Kent County clerk was there, as well as the Grand Rapids City clerk, Joe Lundorf. So we had the leadership in that county, and we talked through same day registration when somebody walks in and registers to vote, how that's checked. We looked at early voting and then absentee balloting. Absentee ballot, you don't have to leave home. Early voting, you get up off the couch and go vote early. And then there's election day voting. All of this is now being, I think, much more understood and carefully explained. One of the things that this group did is there was a poll taken that we were involved with that looked at all of the things that were on people's minds. A lot of people worried, are there paper ballots? Well, in fact, the technology is this: you actually are marking on paper, then it's scanned into the system. But if there is a recount, they go right back and get those old paper ballots out and, check them off. Some of the rules of how we run elections today versus, when Jim and I were running back, in the last century, they were different. And I think people understand this stuff now. What we want to do is just go out and tell people, hey, there are lots of eyes on this. And those eyes are making sure that the process works. Lots of improvements to be made, but lots of confidence about how the process worked. Our role is to kind of tamp down misinformation, keep people from relying on social media as an authoritative source, and go to Chuck Stokes. If Chuck can explain it, because we have been able to provide the facts, that'll help reassure people.
Mm-hmm. Lieutenant Governor Cherry, how will this continue, or will it continue, or do you feel as though, okay, it worked, we don't need to stay teamed up together anymore?
I think the initial effort to deal with election denialism, it worked successfully. I mean, we We asked for help from people like your colleagues in the press corps, and they were very responsive, and I think that held things to a minimum. I think now we've got a different problem in our hands, and that is making sure um, that it's not a question of whether the election was valid. I think that's been settled. I think the question becomes is the credibility of the federal government to make people understand that the transition in power does not necessarily mean the system is falling apart. We need to come together as a public and continue being supportive of our democratic process and institutions.
Sure. Congressman Bishop, when you and Pete Hoekstra walked into the Michigan Republican Party not terribly long ago, there was a lot of chaos. What are you hearing now, and are you still hearing a tremendous amount of concerns, or do you feel as though what we just saw on Tuesday proved that the changes that have been made are giving people much more assurance that democracy is still important and it works?
Well, Chuck, good morning. First of all, I want to thank the Democracy Defense Project for this program and bringing us together, because I think it did make a very big difference from the perspective of the Republican Party, and Pete Hoekstra, who the chairman of the party, who did so much to bring the party back together again and really emphasize election integrity, so that we could bring back that sense of trust in the system. I give him a lot of credit, but I give a lot of credit also to the clerks and the election workers around the state who did such a fine job. We had a process by which we were taking complaints. We had people, election workers, poll watchers, all around the state calling in. We had a central location where we were all staying to make sure that we could get through any complaints that we had. And I have to tell you that there was all quiet on the Western Front. We really did not see a lot of complaints. And I want to emphasize also, we did see chaos in 2020, and really that's what brought this group together. Mm-hmm. But I have to say that in Detroit alone, they made dramatic differences. It's just in the way that they conducted their system. And if we had any issues at all, we had a central person to speak to. We worked through them. And so my hat's off to Detroit for all the reforms that they did to streamline their system, to make it more transparent. I just think they did a fantastic job. My only issue about this particular election is we have got to learn how to get our results in one day. I just think that's the only cloud that looms when you have this delay in results.
We need to take a quick pause for the cause. We'll come right back with the governor's lieutenant governor and congressman right after this. Let me ask you, the concession speech that we heard on the national level from Vice President Kamala Harris and the concession remarks that we heard from Mike Rogers in what turned out to be, a neck and neck, super close race, which proved what we oftentimes say, every single vote counts. Did the two of them in their respective areas set the right tone for the future and for what the four of you have come together to stress about democracy and winning and losing? Because at one point or another, all of you have been on the winning and losing side throughout this electoral process.
I watched Kamala Harris's speech, and I think it was just fine and appropriate. I didn't see Mike's. I do know Mike, and he's a friend, and he has been a mainstream Republican. So this has to be really difficult for him. I've been in that position in a similar close election. But I think they both have handled themselves honorably. This is a good thing. I should say, we are going to have to count on the governors of the 50 states to certify their electors, which will then meet in December. And we need to make sure that's done smoothly as well, and not have any governor from a state go rogue and try to not certify their electors. I don't think that'll be a problem, but it was 4 years ago and it got worked out. The other thing I want to say is it's going to be ironic that Vice President Harris will preside over the Electoral College result in the House of Representatives, and will be ratifying, basically. It's only an administrative and clerical
Yeah.
duty, but she'll be ratifying the election of Donald Trump and J.D. Vance. So that'll be a historic moment as well.
Sure. Governor Engler, as you looked at that Senate race in which Mike Rogers came within a whisker of taking over that seat, and if he had won, it would have been the first time since your old friend Spencer Abraham held that seat darn near a quarter of a century ago.
Well, I feel so bad for Mike because he is a special person and he ran a heck of a campaign, way outspent, but he almost did it. And Mike Bishop said something that's real important. I mean, I think a lot of us went to bed on, well, it'll be Wednesday morning, thinking Mike had actually captured the seat, and then a lot of votes came in, I don't know, 3, 4 a.m. in the morning, 5 a.m., whenever, and got counted or were counted at that time. They didn't come in. I do think if Florida, which is a lot bigger state than Michigan, can count so fast, we got to get that improved. And I think it's embarrassing. Arizona's still way out there counting, Pennsylvania. So we're much better than them. We're not by any means at the bottom, but maybe we're in the middle. We just can improve this. Got to clean up the rolls, all that kind of stuff. But I saw the vice president's speech. I thought it was fine, and I certainly understand her commitment. Look, I'm conceding, but I'm not conceding the fight. We're going to continue. That's what the two parties do. I do hope we're into an era where we're going to see some cooperation. This is true in Lansing now, where we've got divided government, as well as Washington, where we've got such a big change. And the public, you could tell from the election, I think on Tuesday night, they're pretty upset with the status quo. They want change. And so the challenge will be for the parties, both who've got the majority, to try to, offer proposals and solutions and ideas, and hopefully be able to build some bridges across the aisle. Generational change now has arrived. Trump can't run again. You're going to have all new faces. President Biden's leaving office. So there's going to be all new faces in both parties in 4 years at the national level. But I think that portends a big sea change, I think, in terms of the national politics and probably both national parties. And lots of change on the way, going to be very different down the road.
All right, we need to take a real quick break here. We'll come right back with more questions. Stay with us. And welcome back to Spotlight. This question goes to Lieutenant Governor Cherry and Congressman Bishop. We know that there's going to be change in Washington. President-elect Trump has said that throughout the campaign trail. And they're talking about massive change. They're talking about overhauling the Department of Education, the Justice Department, immigration, Health and Human Services. All of you have served in government at various levels and know how the process works. Certainly when someone comes into office, you want your leaders, and we're used to changes of directors and deputy directors and all of that. But this sounds like it may be a lot deeper than that, and it may even affect civil servants. If it goes that deep, is that of major concern to you in terms of the thread of democracy? Because could any of you have run the government if you had come in and threw everybody out, even those people who have been there for 10, 20, 30 years and knew how to make government work from a grassroots level? Lieutenant Governor Cherry?
Yeah, I think Governor Engler was appropriately correct when he classified this election as a change election. I think we need to recognize as well that this is the third change election in a row. And so I think people come into this process with a little jaundiced eye saying, well, are we really going to see change this time? And so I think we need to, as public officials or as people in the public arena, we need to understand that we're going to have to bring people along. I mean, this is not, the old saying is politics is a team sport. Well, that means that we're just not all bystanders. If we truly value our democracy, we've got to approach it with some degree of respect and intention on reaching resolution to things. And Governor Engler's right. That means people have to be prepared to compromise. And I think people are going to be standing here and watching to see if that's what this new Congress is prepared to do. The goal here is to make life better for American citizens.
Sure. Congressman Bishop, you served in Congress under President Obama. You also served under President Trump. So you may have the best view of what may be coming down the line in a second Trump administration. Your thoughts?
Well, the important thing is I served with Obama and Trump, not under them. And that's the good news about Congress, is that Congress has an equal standing in that process and can really exercise its will if it decides to do so, if it works together. We have a 35 trillion plus debt looming over us. Most Americans look at that and think that government is pretty much suspended reality and lives in a dream world. And I think this election, if it says anything at all, it's that elected officials need to wake up and see what really are the issues of this country and stop with the platitudes and all the empty promises. We have to get to work, and that will require both sides to work together. We really should not be sending this to our kids and grandkids to have to deal with in the future. And if anything, I think even the younger generation that really came out this time, that's their message. Get it done. Stop talking about it and stop talking past us. Work together.
This final question, I'm sorry.
Oh, I was going to say, Chuck, you mentioned about civil servants and how deep change goes. I mean, federal civil servants have protections. They stay in their jobs. It's the leadership at the top that matters, and it also, I think, implies cooperation. When something changes, you expect then that the agency will cooperate with the new leadership, not be in revolt and sort of undermining. And I think one thing that's going to be different this time in Washington is you've got an administration coming back and from the president himself, but I think they're going to be able to fill some of these top jobs faster. They had a mess of a transition back in 2016. And I think hopefully that will be avoided and will be smoother. And President Biden had the advantage when he came in, having been in the Senate for so long and knowing Washington, he could get people who knew the government. That wasn't the case in 2016 for President Trump, but it cannot be the idea that there's full-scale resistance among the people who are supposed to implement the policy of those who are elected to lead the government. And that's, I would argue, true at all levels.
Gentlemen, hold your point. We need to take a quick break. We'll hurry right back. Question that I'm hearing people ask: there are more registered women than there are men in this country. There have been 45 men who have served in the presidency of the United States. We have seen the glass ceiling broken on a statewide level. We saw it with Governor Granholm here in our own state, and then again with Governor Whitmer. We have yet to break that glass ceiling in terms of the commander-in-chief. Does America have a chauvinistic, a gender problem, or has the right person just not come along yet? Who wants to take that one first?
Well, clearly the right person hasn't come along. They haven't been elected yet.
Yeah, I think there is an issue of men trusting a woman to be commander of our military. I think there is. I don't know how great it is. I'm not sure this election tested that, perhaps. I do want to say, though, that the important thing for President Trump is to bring in people who will try to run the government, manage it, and help him lead it, and work with Congress. The last time, by the way, we had a balanced budget was Bill Clinton working with Newt Gingrich, so it can happen. But the bottom line is I want to see people who want to run things and do things, not go out and try to settle scores. That will be the big question for Trump. Will they lead and do things, or are they going to spend too much time settling scores with the people that they don't like or wouldn't support them?
Lieutenant Governor Cherry, you served with the first woman governor of this state.
I did, and it's possible to elect a woman. I think, I look at 2016 and then 2024, and I think progress has been made. We're not there yet, but progress has been made. And I also note that a number of abortion bans were voted against, and those opportunities received a higher vote than what Kamala Harris received. And so it tells me that even women aren't there yet as well. So we've still got a lot of social change to undergo. I think we're making improvements. I think someday we will see a female as our president. And I don't think that day's that far off.
I used to think that United States senators couldn't win election as president, but the McCain-Obama race fixed that. They just ran 2 senators for office, and then one of them is going to win. Maybe the answer will be someday both parties will nominate a woman, and there's no question that a woman's going to win. But I do think Condi Rice has been my longtime favorite. I think she'd make a fabulous president. She's never wanted to run. But I think it'll be won in the future by a woman, and hopefully that person's going to be a Republican, but we'll see. Nikki Haley would have been the winner this time had she been the nominee. No question about it.
Congressman Bishop, you get the final word on this.
Well, I grew up with 4 sisters, so I know who's the boss.
So did I.
Yeah. So that you've seen how women lead in person. I think obviously women are quite capable to lead and be leaders. I just believe, though, however, we're in a meritocracy, so people don't look at the gender, the color of the skin, or what separates us. They look at people who are best qualified to lead, and there will be a time when we have a woman step up. There are plenty of them out there. We just need to get more women involved and participate in our government. All
right, governors, lieutenant governor, congressman, thanks so much for joining us today on Spotlight. Best of luck to you in this Democracy Defense Project, and best of luck to you in terms of your own general health. We appreciate you joining us today. I'm Chuck Stokes. We'll be back next week with more newsmakers in the Spotlight. We hope you have a great week.